Stormwater Task Force is an appointed commission board to work out the details of a mandated stormwater plan over the next 4 and 5 years. Well-intentioned individuals, hard-working group, but one of the first things on their agenda was to figure out and bring before this group some 3 years ago a utility fee or some other fee schedule so that it could self-fund. As department heads, we can't self-fund. We can't make more widgets. We provide a service. So in the case where the Stormwater Task Force can actually, can actually fund itself, they fail to do so. So when we look at where $100,000 can go and we debate, as we should, here's a group, here's a component, more or less, under the DPW, more than less, I would say, but independent. And because they failed to take this up, we're now funding this mandate at $140,000 a year, where that money could go elsewhere.
That's the short answer? Excellent. Okay. You got your answer, Mr. Chapdelaine? Excellent. Okay. No other holds on DPW questions? All right, we're on to school hold. I bet there's some discussion on that. Go ahead, sir.
I think that was also me, I believe. Michael Ray Jeffries, 1170 Massachusetts Avenue, Lunenburg, Mass. So my question really is geared toward the school, the superintendent, and the school committee. So first, I fully support the schools. I graduated from Lunenburg High. My sister graduated from Lunenburg High. My nephew graduated from Lunenburg High. And if all goes well in this election in a couple of weeks, I hope that we can create an initiative to partner better with bridging the schools and the town, and certainly we're trying to get some community support and supporting some of our boards. My question for you, though, is, as a contractor, I understand that, sometimes there would be 3 of us standing here, and I'll say, I can do the job better than you for cheaper than you. And what I'm trying to draw an illustration to is cost per pupil, in my opinion, are not always an example of quality of education. So what I would like to see in the future is, how do we test score-wise, how do we compare with other communities similarly sized, and are we getting the most bang for our buck in this community, and what more can we do to get a better bang for our buck? So I want to continue to support the schools, but I also would like to just get a little bit more information about how our money is just being utilized comparatively. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on the school hold? Okay. And those were all the holds. So we are now ready to vote on the article. There were no amendments. So all those in favor of Article 7, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We got through it. Article 8, Ms. Adams. Can't hear you. There you go.
Article 8, I move that the town vote to replace the current salary schedule in Chapter 70, Section 70-8A, the salary administration plan of the general bylaws with the fiscal year 2020 salary schedule as recommended by the Personnel Committee as printed on the purple handout, which authorizes a 2% cost of living increase for fiscal year 2020 for permanent employees not covered by a collective bargaining unit agreement or individual contract, and to authorize a 2% COLA increase for fiscal years 2021 and 2022.
Is there a second? Selectman, your recommendation?
We deferred our vote, so we'll be making it here.
Thank you. Finance?
We had deferred.
Say it again, deferred? Okay. Discussion about Article 8. The Board of Selectmen wanted to take up their vote at this time.
I think there's a presentation first.
Presentation. I didn't hear that. My apologies.
It's not on.
Mr. Chase? I wasn't paying attention. So anxious to keep going. Thank you.
Scott Chase, 23 Cushing Lane, Chair of the Personnel Committee. As a reminder for everyone here, the SAP, the salary admin plan, covers the non-union workforce for Lunenburg. And as such, they're not covered by a collective bargaining agreement. So it is a personnel committee's job to set the salary ranges and the salary schedule that is up for vote right now. And a lot of credit goes to the town manager for doing a compensation review with local towns. She set out and she solicited survey results from 10 towns, and we received back information from 9. Along with that information, we got data, the town manager got data around what the towns are doing for a COLA, a cost of living increase. And consistently across the board, it was a 2% increase to their salary schedules as well. So what we're proposing for the employees that are covered under the salary admin plan is a 2% COLA for fiscal year 2020, 21, and 22. Now the next question would be, is that funded? And so I'm really good at this. I'll defer that to the town manager.
And the answer is yes, it is funded. So the effect of the cost of living adjustment for fiscal 20 is $24,933, of which $2,450 comes from the cable fund, sewer enterprise, and council on aging formula grant funds. And those amounts are all included under the salary reserve account for what was approved in the budget.
Okay.
And lastly, I'll add that the Personnel Committee did vote to recommend approval.
Thank you. Anything else on Article 8? Selectmen, do you want to give us your recommendation?
Is there a motion to make a recommendation?
I'd move the Board of Selectmen recommend approval.
Approval?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We recommend approval, Ms. Moran.
Thank you. Finance?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Thank you. Anything else on Article 8? See that we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 8, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. 9, Mr. Toll.
I move that the town vote to transfer $100,000 from free cash to the stabilization fund.
Is there a second?
Second.
Selectmen, your recommendation?
Board of Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Somebody going to tell us about this article?
This amount is to be deposited into the stabilization fund in order to maintain a minimum of 5% of the operating budget as required by the town's financial policy.
Seeing no one at the microphone, I declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Now we're on a roll. Number 10, Mr. McQuaid.
I move that the town vote to transfer $200,000 from free cash to the Special Purpose Stabilization Fund for the purpose of funding future capital needs for vehicles and equipment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Somebody. Selectmen.
Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance.
Finance recommends approval.
What's going on here, Mr. McQuaid?
This follows the town's financial policy on one of the priority uses of free cash. The Special Purpose Stabilization Fund was created to plan for large capital projects and as another revenue source as opposed to borrowing.
Thank you. Seeing no one at the microphone, declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 10, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 11, Ms. Luck, other post-employment benefits.
I move that the town vote to transfer $150,000 from free cash and to transfer $656 from sewer enterprise retained earnings to the OPEB, Other Post-Employment Benefits Trust Fund, established at the November 30th, 2010 special town meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance Committee.
Finance recommends approval.
Tell us about it, Ms. Luck.
This follows the town's financial policy on putting 10% of the previous year's certified free cash amount into the established OPEB trust fund.
Thank you. Seeing no one at the microphone, declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the article, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Luck, I believe, Sewer Enterprise Fund. Folks, there's two articles, 12 and 13. There's a lot that ties them together. So I believe Mr. Luck is going to be discussing both articles. sort of together since they're connected, but obviously we'll vote on them or amend them separately, right? Is that correct, Mr. Luck? You're going to discuss both of them together?
Hello? Is that good? All right. I'm sorry, Mr.
Thank
Moderator.
you. Article 12 and 13 seem to be related. They're both your articles. Discuss them together and then vote on them separately.
Okay.
Good.
It's quickest.
Let's do it. Saves time.
Okay. I move that the town vote to appropriate from the sewer enterprise revenues the sum of $675,427.86 and appropriate from the sewer enterprise retained earnings the sum of $163,251.14 for a total appropriation of $838,679 to operate the sewer enterprise fund for FY20. And further, that $888,706.40 be included in appropriations from the general fund for indirect costs and be allocated to the sewer enterprise fund.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Selectman, your recommendation.
Board of Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Mr. Luck, it says brief presentation. Go right ahead.
Yeah, very brief.
Very brief.
If anyone who got the handout, it's on the board there. The most important things of these numbers is that there are really two activities. One is what we consider the operating budget of the sewer enterprise fund, and the other is the debt part, and the debt is for the prior construction of the sewer project. The operating part of the budget is completely balanced, revenues equaling expenses. We've done that. This is the 5th year. So the real subtle fundamental difference is the difference in the income between the debt service, what people are paying on the debt for the sewer system, and what our debt payment is. We run year to year, we run a slight deficit. It's about $163,000, which is really the net amount that's being taken out of the enterprise fund, which could recall our savings account. So we have to take money out of that to make up the difference between what people are paying for their betterments versus what the payments are. But that deficit is because some people paid up front. So it's not that we're not getting enough money in general. It's just that people paid up front. So you don't pay the debt off up front as they pay it. So we have the same debt level, but the payments that we're getting from the people are less because some have fully paid up, which is why we have a big enterprise fund. We have close to $2 million in the enterprise fund, mostly because of those upfront payments. So the bottom line is the operations is running at a break even for 5 years in a row with no rate increases, we're proud to say, and we are slowly drawing from the reserve account to make up that annual deficit. But we projected it out 40 years, which is the period of all of these debts that are out, and we never go negative. We always stay quite healthy, positive. So we're in good shape.
Mr. Luck, do you want to address the stabilization fund as long as you're there, which is Article 13? We'll vote on them separately, but just tell people what's going on with that article.
Okay. The Article 13 talks about a capital reserve stabilization fund. This is something we started maybe 3 years ago just to build some additional revenue that we could draw on for capital. We did have some pump issues this year we had to cover. So this is to build a fund so that we won't have capital expense surprises. It comes out of our operating. So when I say we balance the budget operating, it includes taking these $27,521 this year, basically out of our recurring income. So it's not coming out of our savings account. We're managing every year to meet our costs, balance the budget, and put this 27, or essentially 3% of our revenues into capital stabilization fund.
Thank you. Questions on either article? We're going to vote on them separately, but questions for Mr. Luck, Sewer Enterprise Fund? Okay, seeing none, I declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 12, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Luck, can you read in 13, please?
I move that the town vote to transfer from sewer enterprise retained earnings the sum of $27,521 into the sewer capital reserve stabilization.
There is second. Second. Finance Committees.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Anybody have any questions about 13? Declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Number 14, Ms. Adams.
I move the town vote to appropriate from solid waste disposal enterprise revenues the sum of $302,000 to operate the solid waste disposal program.
Is there a second? Selectmen.
We recommend approval.
Finance Committee.
Finance recommends approval.
These are yellow bags, right, Ms. Adams? Is that what this is all about?
Town manager to answer any questions.
Thank you. Yellow bags, right?
Yes, yellow.
All right.
Yeah, everyone's favorite topic.
Not about whether they rip, but whether or not... Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
We can help you there, too. This program has 3 components. The recycling component, which is open to all households and is paid through a general fund appropriation under the budget. The municipal trash disposal, which is paid through the general fund appropriation in Article 7. And the trash disposal, which is offered on a pay-as-you-throw program and is paid through the enterprise article. The program is provided through Casella Waste Services. Town has a 10-year contractual agreement with Casella until 2021, and the cost for the program this year is $302,000. And the enterprise fund pays for the cost of the disposal cost in the pay-as-you-throw program.
All set?
Yes.
Excellent. Anybody want to discuss yellow bags? Seeing no one at the microphone, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 14, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Water Enterprise Fund, Article 15, Mr. Toll.
I move that the town vote to appropriate from water enterprise revenues the sum of $25,000 to operate the water department.
Is there a second? Second. Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
What's going on here, Mr. Toll?
The town manager can answer any questions.
Excellent. This is not the water district that is so ably moderated by Mr. Rogers. This is the water department.
Yes, there's a small area in town with certain accounts, and this is the enterprise account to fund that area. Okay.
Anything else?
No.
That's the extent of it. Seeing no one at the microphone, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 15, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 16, Public Education Government Enterprise. Mr. Walker? Oh, okay. Go right ahead. Find yourself a microphone.
Hi, I'm Steve Walker, 227 Pleasant Street. I'm also the chair of the Public Access Cable Committee. Is he not?
I'm going to discuss these together, Mr. Walker, 16, 17, 18, and 19. All of them are kind of lumped together under PAC, right? So we can discuss all of them at the same time, ask you questions about all of them, all right?
The only problem with that is we shall be quicker.
Oh, nice. So, folks, looking at 16, 17, 18, and 19, thinking about them globally, okay? Go ahead, Mr. Walker, whenever you're ready.
Just to read the article.
Yep.
He moved, I believe he moved. Did you move the article, Mr. Walker? No. Not yet? Okay, Article 16, you got to read it, okay?
I move the town vote
Get closer.
This is getting worse. I move the town vote to establish under Chapter 44, Paragraph 53F and 1/2, a PEG, that's Public Education Government Access Enterprise Fund, effective financial year 20, and transfer into such fund all funds remaining in the PEG Access Receipts Reserved for Appropriation Fund and the Comcast Capital Grant Fund as of June 30th, 2019.
Is there a second? Second. Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Mr. Walker, the microphone and the floor are yours.
All I can say on that particular one is this is basically an accounting change. The fund we presently have, which we thought was the right one, held money for up to a year before we could appropriate it. Using this type of fund, which is allowed, lets us appropriate money that we're expecting to come in. So it doesn't change any of the numbers, just the way they're managed.
And how does that tie in with 17? How does that tie in with 17?
Into 17? If we pass this one, then the others become easy.
Say that again.
I say, if we do this, then all the others are just managing the money that's in the new fund.
Managing the money. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Walker? Seeing none, I'll declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 16, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Read in number 17 then, Mr. Walker.
Article 17, I move the town vote to appropriate from the PEG Access and Cable-Related Enterprise Fund, the one you just voted to establish, revenues the sum of $152,000 to fund the financial year 20 PEG Access operating budget.
Is there a second? Second. Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Okay, putting the money into what you just created, right, Mr. Walker? Yeah. Excellent. Anybody have any questions? We're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 17, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, now we have 18.
I move the town vote to appropriate from...
Nope.
I think this is the one we're going to be able to pass over now, right, Mr. Walker? Now that we got 16 and 17 taken care of?
Yep.
Am I right?
The one you passed over because...
Okay, I move the town vote to pass over Article 18.
Excellent. All those in favor of passing over, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. But it's my understanding we still need 19, right?
Yep. I move the town vote to transfer from the Comcast Tech Capital Grant Fund the sum of $120,000 to fund the financial year 20 PEG Access capital budget.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance.
Finance recommends approval.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Walker on Article 19? Seeing none. Oh, you're almost done. Don't put it down yet. All those in favor of Article 19, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously, Mr. Walker. Good job. Article 20, cemeteries, Mr. Red. Who's going to read this? Mr. Rodquist? Come right up.
Yep, we're building.
Article 20, Cemetery. I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $35,000 from the sale of cemetery lots account to be used for the care, improvement, and embellishment of the cemeteries.
Is there a second? Second. Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Finance.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Says that you're going to answer some questions, Mr. Rodquist, about dying.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I can answer this. So part of it is to fund finish the construction costs of the building near the cemetery, and the rest is for the, like the article says, the care, improvement, embellishment of the cemeteries.
Seeing no one at the microphone, I declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 20, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. I'm starting to get encouraged we could be done tonight. Article 21, Mr. McQuaid.
I move that the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey the land and/or buildings thereon, known as the old primary school building and property, located at 30 School Street, shown on Assessor's Map 071, Lot 076, from the Board of Selectmen for general purposes to the Board of Selectmen for the purpose of conveyance on such terms and conditions and for such consideration as the Board of Selectmen deems appropriate, and take all legal action necessary to effectuate the same, and to execute any and all agreements and documents to effectuate the sale and/or lease of any of the properties and any portion thereof, and to authorize and reauthorize the Board of Selectmen to sell and/or lease the parcel or buildings there situated thereon, and/or subdivide in any manner said parcel and/or building situated, and/or take any legal action necessary to effectuate the sale, lease, subdivision, and/or transfer of all said land and buildings situated thereon.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Selectman, your recommendation?
We had a split decision 2-2 on this one, so there's no recommendation.
No recommendation. Finance?
Finance Committee deferred for the presentation.
Somebody remind me to get it later. Okay. Tell us what's going on here, Mr. McQuaid.
Town manager will make a brief presentation covering Articles 21 through 24.
Okay. You're going to discuss all of them? You're going to discuss the primary building and the Brooks House, land, buildings, all these articles all together?
21 through 24.
21 through 24.
And
Yes.
Mr. Moderator, if I may
Go ahead.
add something, I just want to be clear, something that was just said, that the board here recommended this 2-2, so the fact that the town manager put together this presentation only represents 50% of us.
Okay. Folks, just so you know, these require two-thirds votes because they changed the purpose. Okay? This will be a two-thirds if we get that far. Mr. Clark, why don't you relax for a second? She's going to make a presentation on all 4 articles.
Well, I just wanted to, can I make just a mention? Mike Clark, 275. I noticed Article 40 is pretty much an open-ended rezoning of the entire town, and I'm wondering if it would be appropriate to bring that forward in front of Article 21 so that as we look at these facilities, we know if we're going to pass this open-ended entertainment district zoning or not. They call it art, but it's art and other things. So my thought is get through that article so we know how we're zoning the town, and then we can discuss what we want to do with town facilities and who we want to give the direction to convey them to whoever may want to occupy them for this potential entertainment zoning we're coming up with.
Well, I appreciate the thought, Mr. Clark, but I'm going to stick with the order that we have them. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Heather.
Okay. These articles address the ongoing discussion by the Board of Selectmen on the future use of certain town facilities, including the old primary building, the Brooks House, and the TC Passios. Article 21 asks voters to authorize the Selectmen to sell or lease the old primary building and land at 30 School Street. Article 22 asks voters to authorize the Selectmen to sell or lease the Brooks House building and land at 1033 Mass Ave. Article 23 asks voters to authorize the Selectmen to sell the Brooks House building only, not the land, at 1033 Mass Ave. And Article 24 asks voters to fund the hiring of an architectural and engineering firm to design, create plans, and provide a detailed cost estimate to consolidate town offices, space for school uses, and community space at the TC Passios. The Board of Selectmen have continued discussions since the last town meeting on the future use of these buildings and on consolidating the town offices that are located in the Town Hall and Ritter building, school offices and certain school programs, and community space at the TC Passios building with different stakeholder groups, including the school committee and school superintendent, the Parks Commission, Open Space and Conservation, the Historical Society, Historical Commission, and Architectural Preservation District Commission, town employees, and the Public Access Committee, the Senior Center, the library, and the Boys and Girls Club. The articles to sell or lease the old primary building and Brooks House are partially a result of costs needed to repair and upkeep these surplus properties identified in property condition assessments performed by a company called the Vertex Companies. Buildings received a condition rating that used a formula of dividing the aggregate cost of immediate and short-term needs divided by the replacement cost value and was also based on the building type. Both the old primary school and the Brooks House received a poor condition rating. For the Brooks House, the immediate repairs needed, including an allowance for evaluation and abatement for hazardous materials, total $165,048. Upkeep and maintenance for the next 5 years, excluding immediate repairs and including inflation, total $169,408. An additional $44,653 for general ADA improvements, totaling $379,109. For the old primary building, the property condition assessment identified the immediate repairs, including an allowance for evaluation and abatement of hazardous materials, totaling $1,027,280. Other repairs and maintenance for the next 5 years, excluding immediate repairs and including inflation, totaling $775,260. Additional $73,501 in general ADA improvements, for a total of $1,876,041. The articles for the conveyance of the Brooks House and the Old Primary are also a result of correspondence and discussions with the Architectural Preservation District Commission. According to the Architectural Preservation District Commission, the town is violating the Architectural Preservation District Bylaw. Section 2, demolition by neglect, is illegal for buildings 75 years or older. The APDC is recommending that in order to return the buildings to use, the Board of Selectmen seek to lease or sell these 2 buildings or repair certain items so the building does not fall into further disrepair. Due to the nature of the structure of the Brooks House and the possibility that it could be moved, there are 2 options being presented for the conveyance of the Brooks House. The first, to sell or lease both the land and the building, or to sell the building only and retain the land for town purposes. Article 24 is also a result of ongoing discussion about the future of certain town buildings and consolidating town offices, space for school use, and consolidating for community space at the TCP. The November 13, 2018 special town meeting funded a conceptual design that resulted in 3 different options and rough costs for remodeling the current TC patios into space that would accommodate consolidating town hall and the Ritter town offices, school offices, and program space and community space. This is a rendering of option 1. It demolishes 1,600 square feet that is in the rear left-hand side of the building that was added in the 1970s and keeps the remaining 49,850 square feet. And so there's a section here that would be demolished, the rest be retained. This conceptual design makes the left wing, this wing, into town offices, keeps the gym as a multi-purpose community space, includes space for hearing rooms, storage, space for public access, and school offices, and space for either rental or town school purposes. Parking would be added to the left side of the building here and in the rear side here. Option 2 demolishes 1,600 square feet that is in the rear left-hand side that I spoke previously about, and 7,060 square feet in the rear right-hand side of the building. So here. And retains 42,790 square feet. This conceptual design makes the left wing into town offices, keeps the gym as multi-purpose community space, and includes space for hearing rooms, storage, space for public access, school offices, and school programs, similar to the other design. Parking would be added to the left side of the building here. Option 3 demolishes 1,600 square feet that is in the rear left-hand side of the building, and 11,860 square feet of the back wing of the building and keeps and retains 37,980 square feet. So it demolishes this section. This conceptual design makes the left wing into town offices, keeps the gym as multi-purpose community space, includes space for hearing rooms, storage, and space for public access, school offices, and school programs. The spaces in the municipal wing are adjusted to meet space program requirements. That's why it was able to be reduced. Parking would be added to the left side of this building. After reviewing all three conceptual designs with the school, the preferred option from the school was option 1, that would allow for additional expansion for school programming needs. The funding requested in Article 24 would cover the cost of architectural and engineering services to go through the design development phase for this project and is based on the rough estimated construction cost for option 1. That's all.
That's all?
That's all.
Excellent. Commissioner McQuaid, you were the first to rise, if you will.
So, this is, to me, at the last couple of town meetings, we came back where we had articles that talked about the use of the buildings and funding studies for the use of the buildings.
Point of order. We're on Article 21, and I want to bring it to one article at a time. This is very confusing.
It is a little confusing.
Thank you.
I just want...
Time out.
Yeah.
We need to do one article at a time.
Time out. My meeting, thank you. So, my understanding, when we had our meeting, we were going to do 21, and we were going to do 22 and 23, I think, or those two together. It was a little confusing to have all four of them up. So I would like to focus, starting with Article 21, Mr. McQuaid. It's okay to have the presentation about all of them so people can be generally thinking about all of the articles. But it does get to be difficult without, because primary is very different than Brooks, I think. So let's stick, for now, on primary.
Yeah.
Primary building.
I agree. We need to discuss them individually.
Thank you.
The only point of presenting them together is we've been asked to provide a holistic response to what we're going to do with all of the town buildings. So these kind of go together, where Article 21 talks about the old primary school. The town manager identified some of the immediate costs that are needed to just stabilize that building and make sure the water stops getting into it and it stops being in violation of the demolition delay or the demolition by neglect. We would like to not have the town bear the cost of the $2 million to fix that up. So if, again, considering all these as a group, finding somebody else to do that for us, to have the building remain standing, to have somebody else come in and either buy and, more importantly, lease, because that's the response to that feedback we had that people have concerns about selling it. Finding somebody who would come in and renovate that building and take care of it. All that being done through the proper RFP channels and fully public process. But the point is to care for the building rather than knocking it down. This is to respond to the APDC and fix up the building and not have the town pay for fixing up the building. It'd be nice to find somebody to lease, would be, in my opinion, the first goal. But if we can't find someone to lease it, to buy it and fix it up and use it in a contributing way to the center of town and to our community. But it's impossible to talk to anyone and find interest in a building if you don't have the ability to negotiate and give it to them. Nobody can wait around for a year or two for town meeting approval to move into a space like that. So just to be able to have a meaningful discussion and try to find somebody who'd be interested in helping us preserve these buildings, we would like the ability to solicit that individual.
Okay. Ms. Adams.
Okay, thank you. Article 21, very simply put, is an article to give the power to convey the land to the selectmen. So regardless of your vision for this parcel of land, the old primary school, for anyone who doesn't know, although you may, it's the brick building that's heavily deteriorated in the center of town that's set back behind where the Ritter building is. And so like I had said, regardless of your vision for that parcel, whether it's municipal or whether it should be handed over to developers, whether it's the site of a strip mall or maybe it's zoned so that it could even be an apartment complex back there, regardless of what you feel like is right for Lunenburg, passing Article 21 is not about what happens to the land, it's about who decides what happens to the land. So I feel very much that in a good democracy, anytime there's a decision, you leave the power with the people. With a good plan in place, whether it's to make this municipal land into a park, a site of a future town hall, or to convey it to a developer, I think that should be done through a town meeting vote of the people, What we're doing today, if you vote yes on this, is you're giving your right to decide what happens to that parcel of land to us. Right now, us is 4. Right now, there's the 4 of us. That could be somebody different in just a month. And it only takes 3 votes, so you're really giving the power of the future of that piece of historic municipal land to 3 people's decision rather than to the town's. I think that the town should keep control of the future of your land, and I think any group is in danger when the government asks for power without giving you a clear plan. Article 24, which has been discussed heavily, is one possibility of the future of town offices. If we decide not to fund that vision, but prematurely give away parcels of land that may provide a solution, everything's being done backwards right now. If we move forward with a move to town offices at the TC Passios, and we know we don't need these facilities, then we should sell them. Cart is way before the horse here. It has been for a while. Land conveyance was first looked for on this parcel. It goes back to about 2013. The selectmen asked for the conveyance power, special town meeting, November 2016, it was denied. The selectmen asked for land conveyance May 2017 for this parcel, it was denied. If you read Building Reeves committee meeting minutes, there's heavy discussion of the development of this site. The center of town's been rezoned so it could be developed. A selectman up here has done architectural renderings of an apartment facility on the site we're discussing. So again, regardless of your vision, and we're not here to debate that, Article 21 just gives us the power to decide instead of you. If there's a good solution for that building and that land, let's bring it to a town meeting with an actual plan and then vote to get rid of the piece. Not today. Vote no on Article 21. It's really just a power grab.
Thank you.
Dave Brockview, 733 West Street. Yeah, I'm really confused by the whole thing now. I mean, I've been following it for many years, and it does look, I mean, I hear what they're saying with this, but you're a split board. There's 4 of you. It's going to have to wait anyway, so then it really becomes sort of a political issue. You know, there's one side and the other side, and one's going to win. Whoever that next select person is going to tilt it one way or the other. That doesn't seem fair to me. That's all. I just don't think that it takes into account we the people. And Mr. Clark brought up an interesting point about this possibly being a decision for the town manager to make. I'm not sure if that's right, but in the charter somewhere, there was some discussion about that as well.
Town manager, is this a decision that you make? Mr. Brooks,
I get direction from the board, especially this topic. Sorry, can you hear me? This topic has been long discussed way prior to me about town buildings and where town offices are going to be located. The board has weighed in heavily on the facilities in my tenure here, and I would expect it to continue to do so.
Right, but it's not your decision, it's the board's decision to convey. That's what the
There is, I'm sorry to interrupt, in the budget, there is expenses for facilities maintenance, which we utilize for upkeep.
Thanks.
But it's not 1.8 million.
Sir.
Jacob Fager, oh God, that's loud, sorry. Jacob Fager, 241 Rear Leominster Shirley Road. I went to school in this building, and I'm now 22. It was kind of a pile of mess back then, and it's, I'm sure, even worse now. And I've been to town meetings, and we've talked about trying to do something with it, and it's just kind of sat around. And to Selectman McQuaid's point, we need to move this into a position where it can be dealt with. And clearly, we've been through the town meeting process of trying to deal with it, and this large-scale process has not made any progress. So I support this article, and I think it should be passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir?
Hi, Steve Weaver, 288 Holman Street. I'm against this, and I think that the land in the center of town is very valuable, and that if we start giving it up to strip malls or stores like that or restaurants, it's going to take away from some of the other businesses in town. And also, it's, if it's abandoned after a while because the stores aren't doing well or something like that, I think we should use that primary school for a park. There may be people around that may be interested in funding some of that too. But I think it should be left in the hands of the town, where not just a few individuals can make a decision on it, because it is so valuable research to have that land around, because once it's gone, it's gone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I will give you a chance. Sir.
Matt Snyder, 985 Flat Hill Road. You'll be able to respond to me too, because I'm going to largely agree that we shouldn't be turning over this power to a small group. Whether we trust the current board or not, they may not be the board in place when the land actually would get sold. And so it could end up getting sold for totally different purposes than anyone agrees with. We've only ever seen one proposal as far as plans for what the town wants to do, and that's to move everything and consolidate in TC Passios. If it feels like nothing's happening with the town, it's because the same stuff just gets presented over and over and voted down. Maybe it's time to think about a different plan than what keeps getting presented over and over.
Thank you. Ms. Lizio, move the mic down. No, that's okay. I'll decide. Thank you.
Rhonda Licio, 181.
I'm going to bring a stool next year.
Yeah, no kidding. Reservoir Road. I just wanted to say, I seem to remember in many of the charrettes that were held when we were discussing town buildings, when, you listed all the departments that were brought into the discussion about municipal space and how it should be, what the needs are and where the location should be. But back when we had the charrettes, where members of the public were asked about what they wanted and what they thought were the best options for the buildings, I seem to recall that a vast majority wanted this primary school building to be demolished. And we're in a situation where, another small committee has deemed that we're not allowed to demolish it. And this is just really problematic, because what it does is it's eliminating options, and specifically one that many members of the public expressed a desire for. And the other problem is this is a blanket transfer of power. So I just don't understand, the custody, care, and control. So you want permission to sell, lease, or subdivide, or do all these things, and we have no idea which the choice will be, and I just think it's insane. I would never authorize this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Toll.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just want to make two things clear. As we talk about the primary school, and just specifically the primary school.
Just the primary, please.
There's been some questions on what might happen there. The APDC, which town meeting created and authorized that a couple of years ago, has jurisdiction about what can be done to historical buildings. Any control you pass to the selectmen to negotiate for a lease or a sale would be subject to those requirements, and their position is to keep its historical value, keep the facade, whatever that case may be. So saying that we're going to sell it and make a big box store out of it is not even within the realm. As the town manager mentioned, the Vertex study says for the town to keep that property and maintain it, is going to cost somewhere between $1,027,000 or $1,800,000 over the next several years. That's a bill that the town has to pay if they don't do something with that. All right? If someone wants to recommend the demolition of it, which I know came to town meeting last year and did not pass, that would also have to be reviewed and approved by the APDC. And right now, their position is the town needs to maintain that building. This effort is for us to be able to check the market, see if anybody's willing to do the renovations within the guidelines of the APDC on their dime or not. If they're not, it's a data point to go back to APDC and say, there's really no use in the marketplace, nobody wants to take on that cost, and then the town can decide whether they want to take on the $1.8 million or whether they want to look at a demolition. That's the clarity that I'd just like to bring to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toll. Mac.
Mike Mackin, 26 Cortlandt Circle. Thank you, Mr. Toll, because you've taken off half of my discussion. I'm in favor of this. This building now has been empty for somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 years. We have had proposals for it to be senior housing that fell through. We've watched it just deteriorate year after year after year. The problem is this. It requires money to maintain the building, and money that we are frankly not willing to put into a building that we can't find a use for. The intent, as Mr. Toll said, was to see if the market could bear anything. Now, my personal belief is that I don't know that there's somebody that's going to want this building. The cost of using it and what kind of limited use you could get out of it would be prohibitive. I believe that this is the way of finding out. Is there a market? Because when we, as a prior member of the Building Reuse Committee, there were requests for RFPs, and there was nothing that came through that could figure out a positive use for this building that would yield us what we wanted, which is something that would produce taxes, something that would be in keeping with the neighborhood, something that would be keep the historic use of the building. We got nothing. So my belief is that what the Board of Selectmen is asking for is the ability to go out and find out, is there any interest in the market? My personal belief is that probably there will not be. And that we'll be back here talking about what will be the cost of demolition and how do we go about paying for it. And I just want us to be clear, because it could be another 15 years before we come back and we're still talking about the old primary school. So I urge you to support this.
Thank you. Jeff.
Michael Ray Jeffries, 1170 Massachusetts Avenue. I do not support selling town land really under any circumstance for any reason. However, I do support this article. I think that as someone who's in the construction and property industry, what I do understand is that no one's gonna consider a property if it requires them to have to go through a town meeting. And so if you want to get some qualified information on what can actually be done, you have to reduce some of the red tape. I think that most of us in this room, we all have different visions of what can happen on this land. My personal hope is that we can have a nice space, as I think most members of as I believe half of the members of the Board of Selectmen currently support, that we have a nice community space in the center of town. But I think before we get to that point, we have to look and say, hey, is there an opportunity here for the town to reduce a $1.8 million expense if there's someone else who's willing to come in and create an art center or some kind of other community center that we can all agree would be a good cause? So I do support Article 21, though as a selectman candidate, under no circumstance do I support the town selling any of their land.
Thank you. Sir?
John Rabbit, 314 Townsend Harbor Road. Mr. Moderator,
yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we essentially strike the word sell in two different locations from Article 21, and the Board of Selectmen be authorized to move ahead with the demolition of the property if not able to lease it.
Let me just get it straight, Mr. Rabbit. So your motion is
to essentially strike out the word sell, and it appears
Yeah.
in two different parts of the paragraph. And wherever it makes the most sense, and I rely on the legal folks to give us some recommendations, but essentially to authorize the selectmen to move ahead with the demolition of the property if it is not leased or taken care of, or not leased or by some other property.
Well, I have a question about that, and I'm going to lean over here with town council. I'm not sure that demolition was anything that was before the people in the warrant. So is there anything in there that's going to allow him to tell people we were thinking of demolishing the building?
Simply authorizing the selectmen.
Got it. But that wasn't necessarily what was mailed to the people.
Let's try it.
I'm going to rule the second part, Mr. Rabbit, to be out of the scope of what was mailed to people. You can make the initial strike the word sell, but I'm not going to entertain a motion that we would be potentially demolishing it, because I don't think that's what the people were told when they got it to the... Oh, I don't even know who you are, sir. So step
Point of
away.
order.
No, no point of order for the moment.
Mr.
I'm
Moderator?
speaking. I'm speaking.
You spoke to me first. I'm sorry.
Thank you. So it's my opinion that that is out of order because the people weren't told that we were going to potentially demolish the building. Now, I don't know who you are, sir. Are you a registered voter here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so tell me your name.
John Whalen, 526 West Townsend Road. My point of order, sir, is if we're able to sell the property, then that person would be able to demolish the property.
Yep.
So therefore, could you not then say that we have the ability to, in this warrant, to say, even though it's not in the warrant that we are going to demolish it, because we would sell it and then therefore lose control, and it would then be allowed to be demolished by someone else, that it would not be beyond the scope of the warrant to say we would like to demolish it and insert it there now?
That's a fair question. Stay right there. It's a fair question. And in fact, that's what town council sort of suggested to me. Maybe somebody who bought it could. But that's not what was told to people when they got their warrant at home, that we were considering demolition. So I think, my opinion, that's out of order. In the end, I'm the one who has to decide it. You don't get to vote on whether or not it's in or out of the, it's my opinion, and that's kind of where I'm stuck.
It was just a point of order on that one word.
Not a problem. Glad to have it. Okay, Mr. Rabbit.
Mr. Moderator,
I
would accept your modification, and I essentially request that the word sale be removed from this article.
Right. Was there a second to that?
Sorry.
Okay. All right. You don't know what he did? He didn't write it down, but it's fairly simple. He said, wherever you see in this Article 21 the word sell or sale, that those words be deleted. Correct?
What about the word convey?
Excuse me.
Well, I don't know. Let's ask Mr. Rabbit. His motion.
Use a sale applied in subdivide. There's also
Okay. I would also, if I could, modify mine to include essentially the subdivision of the property as well.
Wait a minute. Say it again.
I would also seek to exclude the term subdivision of the property. I can't really see it. I'm blind. Towards the bottom.
Want these?
Beyond that, I think.
I'm going to try to get to it. As soon as I can understand it, I'll hopefully explain it to somebody. So on this line right here, you want to delete the word subdivide?
Well, may I? Please. I think there's a sale implied in the word subdivide. Yes?
Say it again?
There's a sale implied in the word subdivide. Yes?
Well, that might be a legal question. I might need to be a lawyer, but I don't know the answer. So let's ask town council if that were, and Mr. Bodkin's a lawyer, he might know. Mr. Town Council, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So if I understand the intent of the proposed amendment, it's to remove from the motion the authority to sell the property and to subdivide it for purposes of sale. There's also the term transfer in the final clause of the motion. So if I could ask through you, Mr. Moderator, is the intent of the speaker to amend the article such that the only authority provided to the selectmen is the authority to lease the premises?
That would be correct.
So, Mr. Moderator, again through you, if I could respectfully suggest there are a number of terms throughout the article. The term convey appears in the first clause of the article. The term sale or sell appears twice in the article. The word subdivide or subdivision appears twice in the article. And the word transfer appears once. So I think that the modifications would need to be made such that all the motion authorizes is the transfer of or change of purpose for purposes of lease, and therefore authorizing the selectmen to effectuate that lease, including the execution of all necessary documents for that purpose.
Oh my gosh, could we ask the legal
We can.
assistance?
What we can ask is that you try to write something that's like that, okay? There's a form down at your feet. You're the one that started it. So you write it, the form on your feet. To authorize...
Good call. Good call.
Hold on. My understanding, it would be something like the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to lease the land and/or buildings thereon, known as the old primary school building. I mean, just hold on a second. Wouldn't that fit, Council, and then kind of leave the rest of the words about sale and conveyance?
Yes. Excuse me, Mr. Moderator, you need to convey it first before any of that. So the
Well, it
conveyance...
needs to be conveyed to the Board of Selectmen to
Yeah.
lease. I get that. Okay? But that would be to authorize the Board of Selectmen to lease the land and/or buildings thereon. Wouldn't that cover it? Make it a lot shorter is good, although this is dragging on. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that a lease can be indefinite or very extremely long term, so without giving any clarity as to what is being defined by a lease, it could be leased indefinitely to someone, which I think could be just as negative an outcome as a sale without a plan in place. So although I like the modification, I would want to have an understanding of what exactly we're looking for in the lease, because a lease can sort of be an indefinite thing, which I mean, it could be leased in, 100 years and then I'm dead. I mean, it's an important thing. It's as serious as conveyance. A lease is as serious as a
You can
sale.
ask the person who made the motion to amend if he wants to accept, and the seconder if they
Sure,
want
I felt like we were still constructing it, and I just
We are.
wanted to put that
We
piece
are.
of information into the construction of the
Okay.
amendment.
You can wait if you want as far as making a motion on that. Go ahead.
The compromise of the lease is a good one to me. Again, the intent to me of this article is to try to find somebody who's willing to spend $1.something million to save a historic building for us. So as many avenues as we can keep open for them to do that is better, but lease is still better than nothing. And if you were to modify your amendment to include a timeline, please keep in mind somebody has to lease it long enough to make it worth spending $1.whatever million to take care of it.
Okay, hold on. Ms. Adams.
Okay, just wanted to add a couple details of information to the discussion. One is when we talk about the cost that Vertex assigned to the immediate needs of the old primary building being in the $1 million range. I think it's an important thing to go back and look that 7 buildings were studied during the Vertex trial. They also studied the TC Passios building, which is something that plays into this whole discussion. That building currently needs just under $2 million of immediate needs. Immediate needs are considered safety or complete failure concerns. And so as we talk about these buildings, it's important to note that the one that's a preferred option of some of the selectmen needs just as much money. So to condemn this piece, this parcel, or this building as something that has a cost need associated with it, the TC Passios building had even a higher number associated with it in terms of the same factor from the same group that studied it. So I like to be super consistent. So as we condemn one building for the cost it needs, we should be fair to say that all these buildings have a cost associated with them. And also on that note, this goes to the earlier capital planning. We're not spending money on our buildings, which is leading to them being in this condition. So the idea that a building should be condemned because there's costs associated with maintenance and utilities means we may as well just sell this too. I mean, municipal-owned buildings are a responsibility of the town, and then at some point we have too many buildings. The high school did the right thing. It knocked down a building and built a new one. And so what we see in the center of town are fragments of decisions that weren't completed. So we built a new primary school, but left the old one. And if you go back, I think, it was exactly 2 years ago, I spoke out against the land conveyance article, and I said, Lunenburg's almost 300 years old, we're older than America, this and that, and we're getting larger as a municipality. Getting rid of pieces of land in our municipal center when we're getting bigger just doesn't make sense. And what I said 2 years ago, and I'll say it again now, you really have to take your decision away from thinking about buildings, because it's really about the land. If you go back 300 years and, buildings are being moved, town halls are being moved, schools are being built, knocked down, rebuilt. And so I think the preservation of the municipal land involved in these conveyance articles is really what we should focus on, and not focus on the specific building. Any one of these buildings, including the one we're in today, are not going to be here forever. But the land is something the town will need. As we sacrifice land, we'll find ourselves buying land, and I think that's a funny cycle to start. Bringing it back to this article, it is just an article to give the power to us. And any vision, any lease, any sale, any positive outcome for that building or that land, once there's a plan, can be passed through town meeting. It could be passed through a special town meeting. We could have a plan presented and pass it in a month. But this article is to give whoever's up here the power to make a plan. And some of the people up here have been working on a plan since 2013. And I think you want the plan to be presented to you before you give other people the power to say yes to it. We don't have the plan. There's no plan. We're making decisions without plans.
Thank you. Mr. Rabbit,
Yes,
before
sir.
you talk, I
we're-
need the article. I need the
Okay.
motion.
You're going to have the motion second, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Mr. Moderator, we would, based on the recent input, we're adding in the event of a lease opportunity, that opportunity would be presented to the town for approval or disapproval. So therefore, it takes care of the option if something comes up, it's not being hijacked.
Right.
So
Who made
the town
sec-
can make the decision
I'm
on the
out.
lease.
I'm out. Lose control. Who made the second? Okay. You accept his amendment to his motion? You withdraw your second. Okay. So now what is your motion? See if there's a second.
The motion was sent... You want to read it? Go ahead. Read it up.
I'm going to take a stab at this, and I'm
Go
going to
ahead.
grab the microphone. So, Mr. Rabbit, correct me if I get it wrong.
Hold it.
Nope, I got it. I move that the town of Lunenburg will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey the land and/or buildings thereon known as the old primary school and property located at 30 School Street from the Board of Selectmen for general purposes to the Board of Selectmen for the purpose of lease. I'm not sure of the legal terms in getting all of this right, so
For the purpose of the lease.
Lease, yep. And
Is
then in
that-
the event of a lease opportunity, that opportunity would be presented to the town for approval or disapproval,
Period.
period.
You got the technology to put that up there?
I have the technology to email it to somebody to put it up there. I'd be afraid to connect my
Email it-
laptop. I don't know what's
email it
on
to-
my laptop.
Email it to H.
I'm not dumb.
Email it to H. Lemieux. She's right here.
And I hope I know her email address.
I'll get you. Got a lot of people. All right. Let her put it up if we can, hopefully quickly, so that it was. I think because there's two of them making it, it's seconded. Ms. Menard, you're seconding
second
the
it for
motion,
him.
or somebody made it and somebody seconded. I'm convinced.
I'll second.
Okay, we're good. All right. Let's see if she can get it up there while we're doing. Geez, people, relax. You can't jump in line like nobody else can jump in line. Okay? I know, and I see you down there, and if I forget, you'll get back to me. Okay.
It's a point of order.
Is
That
it-
amendment essentially would just be voting down the article. If they have to come back to town...
That's not a point of order. That's an argument. Point of order is
All right.
different. Okay, go ahead, sir. Right here.
Dennis Manini, 635 Goodrich Street. Actually, that was going to be sort of the amendment that I was going to propose, but glad I didn't, because then I'd have to write it all. You had me at everything except for bringing it back to town meeting. We talk about these buildings, we talk about how deplorable they are, we don't have any money to fix them. We've been beating this pretty much for the last multiple years, so we have to move this forward. So I think the great compromise here is, let's see if the selectmen, not giving them too much power, I agree.
I didn't get it.
Let's see if we can get it out there and for a lease. See if there is any takers out there that are going to fix the building up, then we can lease it, and then if we want to sell it later, great. If we need it for another municipality, we can take it back. But I don't want to bring it back in fall town meeting again to see if we can go out for a 20-year lease. Let's put some parameters on it, but let's not have to bring it back to town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. No, you can wait a minute. You got to go outside to get service? If you want lunch, go get it, please. Or maybe they could bring in some bags. Could we ask the Lunenburg Women's Club, if you're there, bring the bags over here. So those of you that have kids in school, some of you said you did, $5, you can have your lunch all ready for Monday morning. Okay, let's let Ms. Menard get this to Ms. Lemieux so we can get it up there. All right, on the article, on the motion rather, before we get to the article, I'm going to let somebody else speak, Mr. Rabbit. Mr. Chapdelaine, go ahead.
Mike Chapdelaine, 208 Leominster Road. Nobody has said this yet today, so I guess
Excellent, something new.
I'm going to say it. I've lived in this town all my life.
Wow!
I went to the primary building. I went to the, we used to call it the annex, but
what
anyway.
What you're supposed to say is not yet.
Not yet. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Not yet. I have a lot of pride in this town. I have a lot of passion about this town. And it kind of breaks my heart to see what's going on with town-owned buildings. And it's nothing new. Many people have mentioned that money hasn't been spent for years and years and years on these buildings. And we're going through this wrangling today about what we're going to do with these buildings. And I'm not sure if I'm in favor of this article or not, as it was originally presented or as it's about to be amended or maybe not amended. But we need to do something. I mean, that building's deplorable. There's a building we haven't talked about and nobody really knows what the story is behind it, the gas station in the center of town. You know, there's an eyesore in front of the public safety building. And I do business with them. I have a boat. The place is hideous. It breaks my heart to see these buildings go in disrepair, not being used, being underused. We need to do something. We need to make the center of town look better than it does. Mass Ave is the primary route that comes through the town, and it's awful. It's awful. Thank God we can't see the annex primary building from the street. You actually have to walk down there and look at it, which I have, and again, it breaks my heart. So let's continue with this, but let's do something, because it really is awful.
Thank you. Oh, you're wasting time. Let's let the gentleman in the Bruin shirt who's mad at me. Go ahead.
I'm not mad at you. I just think we're wasting time if we're making an amendment.
Right, but that's one of the things we do well. Go ahead.
If we're making an amendment that requires anything to come back before the town again, that's the power that's trying to be conveyed over to the board. Already it has to come back before the town. So any amendment, regardless of its lease, sale, whatever we change the wording to, if the pieces that they have to come back before the town, we might as well just strike down the amendment, or strike down the article. There's no reason to have an amendment to an article that takes the power away from us that says, give it back to us again. Just don't vote for it.
Go ahead. It is now. Can't do it?
There we go.
I just wanted to say, I'll vote for the article. I know we had a process in place years ago that was passed, knocked down, and I thought we were going to come back to the process through which the town could have its say in what happened. And what this does is it takes that power away from people. And a lot of people are passionate about what happens in the center of town. It takes that power away from them.
All right. But remember, we still have the motion before we get to the article. I kind of thought you were. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Nathan Lockwood. I live on Main Street, former planning board member. So I just want to add to a few of the things that have been said in this conversation. So I think there's a lot of concern and fear about what might happen with this property that I personally think is a little misplaced. The town really made a lot of effort, is one of the selectmen mentioned, to pass an architectural preservation district, which is in a good way kind of forcing some action on this now, because it says you can't demolish without an approval process, you can't demolish by neglect without a public process. And so we need to do something. There's also a village center district which regulates whatever uses could be used at that property, public and private. It's, I think, written pretty effectively to ensure that what happens there is something that's good for the town. So I think whether they leased it, whether they sold it, if you look at the uses that are permitted, there's a lot of good things, private and public uses, that could happen there. And conveying that property and allowing someone to develop it would likely be a good thing. And the citizens of Lunenburg would have a lot of control over what happens through the public processes in place through the Architectural Preservation District and the Village Center District. So the other thing I want to mention is, we elect the Board of Selectmen, so if you, and there's certain things that we can't do in this town meeting, I think I've run out of battery here. It's working fine? Okay. Keep it close? Okay.
No, not too close.
Too close.
Don't swallow it.
All right, sorry.
You're next.
So anyways, there's certain things like conducting business that we're just not equipped to do as an open town meeting on a regular basis. If many people are mentioned to do transactions, we need to entrust people who, in this case, people who we elect. So I think calling this a power grab by the very people that we elect is a little bit, it reflects a pretty serious lack of trust in our institutions, that I would like to think we have more trust in the people we elect than that. I would also like to think that people understand, if they care about these things, pay more attention when we are electing them, pay attention to the campaigns, but by undermining the ability of selectmen to do the very things we have a select board for, is really hindering our ability as a town to make progress on important issues like this. And if someone else mentioned, I think we got to be, it's kind of human nature to worry about losing something. Right now we're worried about losing a piece of dilapidated property that's about to cost us a whole lot of money. Now, we could go out and buy more if we cared about the town having land, we could buy land all over town. There's land for sale. We could come here and put bills on the warrant to take out loans and buy all kind of land over town for the town government. But I don't think that we have a lot of use to do that right now, and if we did in the future, we could do that. So I guess as we approach what we're doing with these town-owned buildings in town, I think I want to understand a couple things. The Board of Selectmen is elected and controlled by us. The people are not giving away power by empowering their select board to do things. That's number one. Number two, we've already done important things to ensure a bright future for the Village Center District, and that's pretty much it right now. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Right down here. Go ahead. Get your microphone. There you go.
Hi, George Martin, 522 Burridge Street. Just a personal comment. I attended a meeting with the Open Space Committee, and they were very strongly in favor of preserving the land underneath that elementary school for future farmers markets and potentially moving band concerts over there to have a bigger footprint and to encourage more people to attend. I guess I'm sort of in favor of holding on to that land and basically giving it back to the taxpayers and let them decide what's best to do with it. Not to be sarcastic, but if I was going to make a proposal, number one, relocate the rats that are living in that building.
Oh.
Number two, knock it down. And number three, put grass seed down and use it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. All right, no. I don't want to get bogged down into clapping and hooting and hollering. Gentlemen, quickly, because I'm ready to move the question myself, even though Archambault didn't get up. Go ahead.
Carl Luck, 50 Sunset.
Is this working? Carl Luck, 50 Sunset Lane?
It's working. Let's go.
Yeah, just, it seems clear that the selectmen are hearing the people, that nobody, we're kind of gravitating around people don't want to sell the land. That's not the goal. My understanding is that the concern the selectmen have is they can't get good response because they don't have control of it, so they can't even see if anyone would be interested in rehabbing it or redeveloping it for rental. My question is a technical question, though. Becoming painfully familiar with the charter, doesn't the charter already give the town manager full jurisdiction over rental of town facilities? So couldn't the town manager initiate a search for people to lease the building?
Rental.
Well, we have a charter expert. Come on, Mr. Archambault. You're the chairman of the charter review. Come down here and talk to me. And then we'll let you move the question or something.
Rental.
You can rent, can the town manager rent any? Line 537 gives the town manager the authority to rent it, which I think is like lease. Okay.
Steve Archambault, 662 Page Street. In the answer of your question, I was told line 537, as I go to it, says, town manager to have full jurisdiction over the rental and use of all town facilities and property except property under the control of the school committee, the library trustees, and the Conservation Commission, and shall be responsible for the maintenance and repair of all town buildings and facilities placed under this control by this charter, bylaw, or vote by the town or otherwise. That is a direct quote from the original charter.
Okay.
Or, not the original, I used this one.
Okay. I told Ms. Adams she could speak. It's your motion, so I'll give you the last chance. But then we're ready to vote, folks. Go ahead. Oh, no, but I called on you, so you'll go. I like to control who gets to speak next.
Oh, when I ask to speak, I can't, and then when I don't want to, I have to.
I didn't ask you not to speak ever. And you raised your hand, I called on you, speak.
I said before we move the question, I'd like to
before
speak.
we move it. Well, we're getting ready, because I'm ready to move it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
No,
Okay.
Yeah.
I just think carts before the horse is the most important part of this. If the town wants to vote yes on moving into TCP and all these spaces are truly vacated and unneeded, then we can dispose of them. Personally, I would need to see the town vote yes to fund the plan to go to TCP or some other plan before you get rid of municipal land. This is just a power article, and it just should be voted down. The amendment will convolute things. I think we just need to say no to Article 21 and keep the power of all of these options with the town.
Thank you. Okay, I declare we're ready to vote.
I don't think we're ready to move. We have people up here who have not spoken.
I do, and I decide when we're ready, okay? So we're going to vote on the motion, okay? The motion is on the board right there. It's what it says. That's the motion, okay? So we're ready to vote on that. All those in favor of the motion.
Can we read it?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Moderator, could I read? And
You
just
can read
make
it.
final
Read it
comment?
into the record.
Okay. I move that the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey the land and/or buildings thereon known as the primary school building in property located at 30 School Street, shown on the assessor's map 071, lot 76, from the Board of Selectmen for general purposes to the Board of Selectmen for the purpose of lease in the event of a lease opportunity that would be presented. Now, I understand it's acceptable to the charter. The point of it is, by conveying it to the selectmen, they can also investigate and authorize the demolition of the building. They would have to come to us to get a capital item like that approved, so it gets to come before the town one more time. Let's just take the land for sale off the table. Let's give them a chance to say, somebody wants to lease it, great. If not, let's get the selectmen the power to make the decision to move ahead for the demolition and bring it to us.
Go ahead,
Let's
Ms. Adams.
move ahead with it.
Okay, thank you.
On the
One
motion.
comment on the motion is the word convey is in there, and we can ask town council, but convey does mean to sell, and so I think that word needs to be slashed if this truly means to lease.
Town council, we need to get that word out of there.
Mr. Moderator, through you, I might just suggest that the speaker replace the word convey with the word transfer. It's that conveyance
I would
speaks
accept that
speaks to
motion.
the transfer.
You'll accept that?
Yes.
Whoever seconded, Mr. Brokerview, I think?
Somebody?
Right? You'll accept the second? You'll second that change to say transfer instead of convey, right? Okay. Now you got that in front of you. Majority vote, even though the article be 2/3. Those in favor of that amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
That amendment is defeated. The Article 21 is in front of you. We got Article 21 in front of you. Could you put the article? There it is. Okay. So the article, again, would give the Board of Selectmen the authority, if I scroll down there somewhere, convey on such terms and conditions and for such consideration as the Board of Selectmen deems appropriate, and to take all legal action, and you can read the rest of it, right? Okay. On the article,
Dennis Benoni, 635 Goodrich Street. I'd like to go back to the amendment and just strike out coming back to town meeting.
the amendment was...
That was the original
You can make
one.
another amendment, but the article, the motion, that amendment was defeated. Now you want to make a new one.
I do.
You're in authority to do that.
I'd like to make a new motion to amend the article, I don't know, back to the original amendment, striking out the last
Can you get
sentence,
it back up
please.
there? Okay, folks, so let's see. Is there a second to the gentleman's request to strike that language about coming back regarding the lease?
We're just going to explore
Eliminating
leasing.
the last sentence. I get it. Was there a second to his motion? There's a second. Okay. Now, on his motion, again, we're not at the article, we're still on the motion, which now, can you delete that language, Ms. Lemieux? You can try. I couldn't
Put
do
a
it.
strike.
Okay, now you go ahead and speak to your motion.
Well, I think, going round and around here, I'll be brief. I just think this is a happy medium. We're giving the power to go out and research to see if we can lease this. We're not going to knock it down. We're not going to sell the land. We're just going to see, hey, is somebody going to come fix the building up, and can we lease it? That way, we're giving a little bit of power, but not all of it, and I think it's a great happy medium. Thank you.
Okay. How are we doing, Ms. Lemieux?
Just that last sentence, or insert transfer for convey?
See if you can you put it up? Maybe? Kinda? Sorta?
Do you want transfer in the place of convey?
Transfer. Board of Selectmen to the Board of Selectmen. Got it.
Mr. Moderator, I have a question for town council.
Certainly.
I think we need to be more clear about the lease. Leases can be long-term leases, which are almost indefinite, which is very similar to a sale. And because we said land or building, we could technically lease it to a developer that could technically seek to demolish the building. And I just want to clarify that that is indeed true.
I think he said that before to me, that could somebody who's leasing it then demolish it?
Through you, Mr. Moderator. So I did mention that to you before. It was in the context of a potential sale and not a lease. But I would concur with Ms. Adams that at least the way that the current amendment is structured, it says to lease the land and or buildings. And if you read that as or buildings, then you could indicate that the lease would be for land only and therefore would authorize a demolition. So as the amendment is currently drafted, there could be a lease entered into by the town that would authorize a demolition of the building, and therefore it would be a land lease only.
That muddies it, doesn't it?
And then under the lease, they could say in a long-term lease, build a strip mall or apartment complex. True or false?
Hold on. Let's one at a time, please. Ms. Adams, say the question again. Sorry.
If the town enters into a long-term lease, which there's long-term leases that can be for over 100 years with commercial property and things of such, there's very long-term leases. So technically, we could be authorizing a situation where the selectmen could enter into a long-term lease in which if a developer entered into a long-term lease, they sought to demolish the building and/or that was the building's only option, they could lease it and build what they like.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Moderator. So there are certain restrictions on municipal leases, particularly long-term municipal leases, but that being so, I think what Ms. Adams says is correct, at least in the sense of what the article authorizes. I'm not speaking to zoning controls, I'm not speaking to APDC review, I'm not speaking to any other potential obstacle to the demolition of the structure or the construction of a new building on the site. Simply in the context of the amendment that's proposed and the authority to convey or lease, in this case, the land, yes, that is a potential possibility.
And if I may clarify for myself, is that because it says and/or?
It's just the nature of a lease can technically be very similar to the nature of a sale. And so we're not avoiding any of the outcomes that people may be concerned of by switching to lease because of long-term lease agreements. Could be a lease agreement with a developer that is beyond any of our lifetimes, which to me is just as dangerous as a sale.
Okay, if I could ask town council, is that because it says and/or?
Mr. Moderator, I do think that the and/or suggested it could be a land-only lease. I'll also say, and this has already been raised in the context of this discussion today, that there's an argument to be had that the town has the authority already to lease the property by virtue of its ownership interest in the property. What the amendment purports to do is transfer the care, custody, and control in the hands of the Board of Selectmen for general municipal purposes to the Board of Selectmen for the purposes of lease. I don't believe that's a necessity. I believe that general purposes would incorporate the ability of the selectmen to simply lease that property, even without town meeting authorization.
So we could spend another 15 minutes and not change anything.
That's possible.
Okay. Shall we spend another 15 minutes? Nope. You can't just speak to me from your seat. You can't just speak to me from your seat. Microphone's open. Please, sir.
First of all, I just...
your name and address.
Sorry, Dave Blatt, Goodrich Street, Lunenburg.
Can't remember where you live now.
It's been a long day.
It has.
So, first of all, regarding the amendment to me is exactly what we just heard from to me, this is just repeating what the charter already states. So I don't know why this amendment's in front of us. However, I do need to say a couple of things right now quick, is that we have elected the Board of Selectmen. You have the ability to go to a meeting. You can make your voices heard. Why are we making such a big deal here? Even if they go to sell, lease, demolish, do anything, you have a voice. Why don't we just give them the chance to go out and find something with this building? As a group, we have done absolutely nothing with these properties. Ms. Adams, I respect that the rest of us would like to speak. You've been given ample time to express your opinion. We all know it very, 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 very well, okay? The fact of the matter is all this is a charter, this is in the charter. I'd like to move this motion that we move this motion or whatever we have to do to get this over with so we can go back to the original motion on the board, in front of the board, in front of the group, the town meeting.
Is there a second to moving the question? Fine. Are you kidding me? That's not debatable. 2/3 vote. Shall we end debate on the motion, not the article, just the motion? All those in favor of ending debate on the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nobody wants to keep talking. Love it. Okay, now the article is before you, Ms. Lemieux, not amended. Did you get the article back up?
That's it.
You didn't vote on the amendment.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Now I'm getting tired. I don't know where I live. Okay, so debate is ended. Thank you very much. All those in favor of the motion to amend article, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
No.
See, I knew where it was going. Article 21 now. You're still debating and discussing it to the extent you want to amend it. Further, sir,
Tom Alonso, 284 Lancaster Avenue. Just 2 points. I think we have two problems. The problem is not with this building and not the sale of everything. I think the very most important reason comes, because it's been used as an argument in this for not only this town meeting and several others, is a distrust in the people that you elect to represent you. In the article, the original article, it says that they should do this, take such action that's in the best, in the best interest of the town. And clearly people don't agree that, or don't trust that the Board of Selectmen are going to act in the best interest of the town. So it comes down to a trust issue, and then it comes down to the other problem, which is one of consensus and unanimity. We think that somehow we're going to build a plan. If you build a whole plan, it gets voted down because we have to take things individually. We can't deal with the whole thing at once. We got to do things one at a time. If you approach things one at a time, the other half says, I can't deal with things one at a time. We have to have the whole plan. I'll tell you what's going to happen, okay? If this town body and the elected officials and appointed officials don't come to some agreement, we're going to be here 15 years from now talking about the same primary school, and nothing is going to happen. I think that you should give it in the hands of the ways that gives us the most options, and if you don't like or don't think the Board of Selectmen are doing things in your best interest, don't vote them in. Just do that and attend meetings, as a previous person said. Because this is just repetitive. I love to rewrite articles on town meeting floor for hours at a time, but really we're not getting anywhere because of those problems.
I really don't want to get into clapping.
So I sort of have a point of order, please.
No, I didn't call you yet, but I will. I don't want to get into clapping stuff, folks, because it just distracts. Go ahead, Ms. Adams.
It wasn't in the printed warrant that went out because it wasn't ready on time. But when it comes to Article 21, this current board voted 2-2. So multiple speakers have said we need to trust in our board. And just so everyone out there understands that although this article was submitted by the selectmen, the support up here is 2-2. So we're split as we sit here in terms of our recommendation for this article. And if you went back to the meeting where we voted, what we felt was that the land was a valuable part of the municipal center, and that there may be, for me personally, we have municipal parking needs, we might have open space needs, etc. But all that aside, Article 21 gives the power for us to decide. We're 2-2 on that, so we actually don't even know what we want to do with it. And so today, if we had done the work that should be being done, instead of Article 21, we could have a plan. We could have a vision, and we could say yes or no to X, Y, and Z. Instead, we're just asking for control. Say no to control. That's all this article is.
Thank you. Mr. Long.
Yeah, Nathan Lockwood, Main Street, Lindbergh. Just a real former planning board member. Just a real quick point. I'm really not happy about the misinformation I'm hearing from a member of the select board about what the current zoning is for that space. They talk about strip malls. You can't build a strip mall there under the current village center, district center zoning. And in fact, there's very tight design regulation there to ensure that, you know, quality things go in there. So I don't want to see fear-mongering about what might happen in that space when the town has already taken action in town meeting effectively to put in place tight zoning and public control over what gets built there. Thank you.
Okay. I haven't heard from Ms. Hatch all day, so I got to call on somebody who hasn't spoken, and then Mr. Bodkin, haven't heard from him yet. Go ahead.
Carol Hatch, 41 Hilltop Lane. I too grew up in this town only since I was 7, so he's got me beat. I grew up in the center of town in what is now the Dragonfly Garden Cafe. I originally, have to admit, I approached all this from a very sentimental place. Last year at this time, my mother asked me how town meeting was, and I said, Mom, nothing's changed since you left. We're still talking about buildings. I've seen some of the plans that the selectmen have come up with. I have been to meetings. I trust the direction that the board is going in, even though I understand at this moment the board is split. I think that if we don't pass this, 15 years from now, I will be maybe not even in town anymore, and my kids will be telling me we're still talking about town buildings. I would like to move the question, but I understand, moderator, that you have someone that you would like to speak because he hasn't had the opportunity, so I'll leave it to you. Sorry.
Well, if you're moving the question, okay. I mean, it's not up to me. Well, sometimes it's up to me to deny it, but I'm not going to very often move it myself. But it's been seconded, okay? So moving the question, 2/3 vote to end debate. We don't have to end debate, but we could. All those in favor of ending debate, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? See, nobody wants to keep talking, not even you, Mr. Bodkin. Now the article is before you. Because this changes, it's a 2/3 vote, okay? All those in favor of Article 21, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. I declare that by 2/3 it has passed, but I'm expecting 7 to stand. No? 1, 2, I think it's 7. Okay. I can have my counters, please? I understand it's a 2/3. It's a little harder to guess. Okay, counters, come on down. Okay, get your cards ready. Okay, do you have everybody got a partner? Good. So, hand up your card if you are in favor. Yes, vote. Article 21, not amended, as printed on the board. Everybody got their card up. Don't forget to get the fire chief as far away as he can possibly be from the rest of us. By design. Agree, Mr. Como? On my left, how many? 25. On my right, Mr. Beck?
34.
34. And that included?
Yes.
Thank you. And in the middle?
32.
32. Okay? Now, if you're opposed to Article 21, please raise your cards for counting. Having fun? Good. And our trusty town clerk will do the math. Carry it out to 4 decimal points as necessary. On my left, 11. On my right,
19.
19. In the middle, 60. What? 60? 16. Tell me the total number of votes and what is 2/3. Lawyers do 1/3, right, Mr. Bodkin? Right. Carry the 1, move the decimal point. Yeah. I haven't even got the count yet. I got to wait for the official word from Ms. Herrick. It's all right. I'm not going anywhere. What time's Kentucky Derby's probably over. Doesn't start till 6? Fair by 1 vote. Defeated by 1 vote. somebody move for a recount? Again, just like, okay, I got it. Just like the other one, extremely close, so I will ask for a recount. Get the counters down here. Yeah, could we have the numbers, Ms. Herrick? 137 total. Well, tell me what the numbers were. 137 total.
91 yes and 46 no.
91 yes, 46 no. I think everybody was checking it but me. Okay, all those in favor of Article 21, that would be a yes. Raise your cards. Make sure you have your cards sideways, Ms. Doherty, so we can read them all. Do I vote? Nobody, you don't have to vote. No, I decide to do a recount. Yep, okay. So, in favor, raise your cards, make sure we can see it, raise it high. We don't recount twice if it's the same decision. If it's a different decision, we might have to see what's wrong with the counters. On my right, Mr. Beck.
Leveck, 36.
Leveck, I'm sorry, you're right.
35, rather.
35 on my right, including all the people up here. Thank you. Mr. Como, on my left. 26. In the middle. Whoops. Go ahead. Keep going.
People are putting their hands down.
You don't put your hands down. Keep them up, or you won't be counted. How many in the middle? 3-0 in the middle. Okay. Now, if you're opposed to Article 21, please raise your cards. Get your calculators ready. But there might be a different total number of people. That's fine. Mr. Como, on the left, 13. In the middle, 15, 1-5. On my right, Mr. Levesque, I know your name, I'm just getting tired. Go ahead.
21.
How many?
21.
21. All right, get your calculators while Kathy's working on it. 2/3 vote. No, hold on a second. You can put your cards down now. That's okay. They've been counted, I think. Middle, ladies, thank you. On the no vote, on the middle, because people aren't sure they got counted. Could you count them again? Thank you. On the no vote, in the middle. Ms. Adams, you're not in the middle. And Ms. Herrick, you're not in the middle. You may feel like you're in the middle. I'm in the middle, but you're not in the middle. We're counting because there was some question about whether or not they got all their votes in the middle. What do you got?
15.
Same number you had before. I know you could count. 15 in the middle.
Mr. Moderator, Can I confirm Ms. Herrick's vote? Was that a no vote? Because
I don't know yet. She hasn't told me.
We did not see her vote.
I didn't
her
hear
card
it.
earlier.
Hold on.
Her individual vote.
Say what? 140 voted. This time it lost by 4 votes. Okay? So it's been defeated twice. So it stands defeated. Article 22, somebody move that for me. Oh, forget the clerk. Article 22, somebody move. Phyllis, look. This has to do with the Brooks House. My understanding, we're going to discuss 22 and 23 together, even though they have different language, makes some differences. But they're both about the Brooks House. But Ms. Luck, please move Article 22.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey the land and/or buildings thereon known as the Brooks House and property, located at 1033 Massachusetts Avenue, shown on Assessor's Map 060, Lot 055, from the Board of Selectmen for general purposes to the Board of Selectmen for the purpose of conveyance on such terms and conditions and for such purposes and for such consideration as the Board of Selectmen deems appropriate, and to take all legal action necessary to effectuate the same, and to execute any and all agreements and documents to effectuate said sale or lease of any of the properties and any portion thereof, and to authorize and/or reauthorize the Board of Selectmen to sell and/or lease the parcel and/or building situated thereon, and/or subdivide in any manner said parcels and/or buildings situated, and/or take any legal action necessary to effectuate the sale, lease, subdivision, and/or transfer of said land and buildings situated thereon.
Is there a second? Second. Selectmen, your recommendation.
The selectmen voted 2-2, so there is no recommendation.
No recommendation. Finance.
Finance Committee is split.
Split. Tell us what the split, what's the numbers?
Actually, the split has more to do with whether we find that there's a direct financial impact, given there's a direct financial impact either way.
Well, what's the number that you split on? Just tell me. What was the vote?
No, actually, we're no longer split. Okay, so we're 4-1.
4-1, that there's no financial impact?
Opposed.
Opposed to the article, 4-1. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Luck, tell us about Article 22 deals with the Brook House land and building, as I understand it, and Article 23 about the Brooks House only refers to the building. Am I correct?
Yes.
All right, tell us about this.
Board of Selectmen Chair Mr. Toll will answer questions.
Excellent.
Get this going. The town manager did make a presentation. I'm available to answer questions. These 2 articles, one is to authorize the sale, lease, etc. of the building and the property. The next one is to authorize the sale of just the building, and the town retains the property.
Okay. Is there more presentation to that, Ms. Lemieux? No more presentation. Mr. McQuaid, go ahead.
I just add the clarity again that this, and remind people this was the APDC, the Preservation District, has identified that we're in demolition and neglect for this and the primary building. They are, previous to some of the conversation earlier, nobody has the authority to approve the demolition of either building, Brooks House, whatever, without the approval of the APDC, and their stance is that the buildings should not be demolished. So this is to, again, try to find somebody to fix it up for us so we're not stuck with the cost of fixing it up. Similar to the Jones House, which is next to the teen center, we put that out for sale for somebody with certain guidelines of how to fix it up properly. We found somebody to do it. They took it from an absolute mess to a beautiful contributing home in the center of town. Article 22 would do that and allow someone to keep it in place. Article 23, if you don't like 22, would have to try to find someone who wants to pick up the building and move it away, which is more difficult and takes away the historic value of having that home in the center of town.
Sir.
Tanner Cole, Massachusetts Avenue. I just want to clarify what exactly we're trying to convey. It's my understanding that Brooks House sits on the same parcel as the school. And so is there a legal conforming lot that this building will be conveyed on so that a potential owner would be able to actually use the property, given the drainage easements that are on the property and the parking for the library that's directly behind the building?
Mr. Moderator.
Go ahead.
The Brooks House sits on an 8.5 acre parcel that includes the patios. That parcel of land is currently under the care, custody, and control of the town. It has not been surveyed or divided as a lot in and of itself. That would be part of this process. But again, it's the rationale being to fix it up is, according to Vertex, $379,000. To do the survey is whatever thousands. We want to ensure that the town wants to do something before we spend any money.
And I guess my point then is, can we legally give the power to convey to the selectmen where we don't know what we're giving them? The legal description of the property is included in the article in the warrant, and it doesn't accurately describe what we're conveying, because currently the two buildings are on the same lot, and so theoretically you would be conveying both buildings, correct?
Town council, did you hear that question?
I did, Mr. Moderator.
I'm glad you're paying attention. Let me get an answer to Mr. Cole.
So, Mr. Moderator, it's for this reason that when we craft or when I review warrant articles, we're certain that we not only refer to property by common names like the Brooks House property, but we also attempt to use street addresses, and then sometimes to take even more of a belt and suspenders approach, we'll include assessor's map and lot references, and that's what we've done here. So the property that is referenced in the article is the property known as the Brooks House and property. But then it goes on to say located at 1033 Massachusetts Avenue, and then it further goes on to say shown on assessor's map 60 lot 55. So that is the property that this article and thus this motion proposes to give the selectmen the authority to convey. If the intent of the selectmen in the future were to receive this authority were to be only to convey that portion of the property that is commonly known as the Brooks House or the Brooks House property, then certainly there'd be a prerequisite that the property would need to be divided through a subdivision or an A&R process, something like that. But the way that this currently stands, it's that specific property known as 1033 Massachusetts Avenue, and if that still is vague, it's whatever is shown in the assessor's records as map 60, lot 55. That is the property for which authority is proposed to be given.
Thank you. That answer the question, Mr. Cole?
Not really.
Well,
do we have a copy of what map 60, lot 55 is, like a visual representation?
Right, is that the 8.5 acre parcel that includes TC Passios? And I believe it is.
Okay, let's find out. Who's on zoning around here?
Because if you,
Hold
and
on,
I know
sir.
the GIS isn't super accurate, but if you go online and look at the GIS, it's all one parcel. It's TCP, Brooks House, the middle school, the high school, and the athletic fields in that
All right,
area.
so let's go back to town council. You're asking, is it defined enough so we know what it is that we're talking about property-wise?
I
right?
just would like some sort of visual representation that...
Okay. Well, I don't know if we have one, but that was a question of yours. Do we have a visual representation of what this looks like? Anybody? I don't know. Well, a visual for today. Nope, no, let's not talk without being at a microphone and recognized. I think town council's looking at it, so just give them a minute. Better with a computer than I would be. Folks are doing great hanging in. I appreciate it. I want to get through this all today, really do. We had planned that if we needed, we could recess to Monday night. I don't think anybody wants to do that. It kind of focuses the meeting, instead of all of you that have been here all day, into people that now come in just because of something that's on the warrant for Monday night. I really want to try to get it done. We've got to push through it. We still have marijuana to do, and we still have the charter to do. So we got a lot to do.
With a map.
I'll get there. I want to get this done first.